players-only meeting might have saved the season for KU basketball, and they carried it over into a crushing victory over Iowa State.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here with Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. On today's episode of the show, we recap KU's dominant victory over Iowa State, what it means for the season, how a players-only meeting might have saved the season for KU, the biggest positives and negatives from the game awards, moments and plays of the game, all that and more on today's episode of the show, which is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. College football playoff championship game is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action as we wrap up the playoffs. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. All right, so Kansas dominates Iowa State. I mean, this was, from start to finish, KU's best game of the season, and it came against, for my money, KU's best opponent of the season. If you want to argue Duke, you can have a real argument, especially after how this game went. But I think Iowa State's as good as anybody KU has played. And they showed what the ceiling could be, right? They showed that they can, because we've seen them beat, you see them beat Tennessee, who's a good team. You see them beat, win at NC State, who's a decent team on the road, and, Missouri's a decent team. But now they showed they can beat one of the elite teams. And not only did they show they can beat them, they crushed them. And this was almost a season-defining win to a certain standpoint, and a season-saving win, right? This puts Kansas at 12-5 on the season, 2-2 in Big 12 play. A 1-3 hole would have been tough to overcome. Sitting at 11-6 when you still play a handful more of top 15 opponents, tough to overcome. And so much so that after the West Virginia game, we were talking about how, I still thought Kansas would be a tournament team, but it was no longer a foregone conclusion. Well, you win this game and it feels like you're back on that track, and now it feels like you can get back into more of the conversations you want to be having of what is this team's ceiling? How good can they possibly be? Where can they go from here? And this was the type of performance that has you dreaming of big things that could possibly come for this team if they can just do more of this. It was a really, really impressive win against a really impressive team who came into this one undefeated on the season. And so we found out in the pregame, this was tweeted out by Gary Bedore, Trey White said on radio pregame, the players held a players-only meeting in the wake of the loss at West Virginia. He said what was needed to be said was said. And so, sometimes players-only meetings only go so far, right? Sometimes it's too much of a mess, but sometimes it can be the turning point. And for a team that does seem to, everything we've heard is this team seems to like each other and they get along with each other. And so having that kind of moment could be the defining thing. And it's easy to look back and now say with the result here that, it seemed to work in a good way for KU. Now, the question is going to be, is that just going to lead to a one-game momentum boost or a one game where everybody ramped up the intensity because of what happened? Or can that have a lasting impact the rest of the season? But regardless of what it was, leading to this result does have a lasting impact on the rest of the season. It does boost KU's resume. It does boost their confidence. It does show them what they could possibly be, right? It does potentially lead to a bit of momentum. You're playing a good Baylor team at home upcoming on the weekend, but you're playing back at home where clearly the Allen Fieldhouse, I know you lost the close game to UConn this year at home, but the Allen Fieldhouse magic is there and in full force right now. You look at the comeback against TCU, you look at, the crowd pops we had in the KU Iowa State game. It potentially could be the moment we look at and say, okay, that was the turning point. I remember back in the 2015-16 season, and that Kansas team wound up being one of the best teams. I mean, they were the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, but they had lost 3 straight road games. I think it was 3 of 5 games overall. And I think they had a players-only meeting. I can't remember, but the story I remember is that they couldn't really figure out who the starting center was or who should play the most minutes. And I think some of the players went to Bill Self and was like, we like playing with Landon Lucas. And Landon Lucas ended up taking over the starting center role, got more of the minutes. And from there, Kansas won, I forget what it was, 16 straight games until they ran into Villanova and in the Elite Eight there. But that ended up being one of the best teams in the country, right? You hit that moment in January, and ideally this would lead to something even relatively similar there, right? And speaking of Trey White, who brought up the players-only meeting thing, there's something so awesome about a guy like Trey White who, I get it. Like, I'm not a fan of the, hey, you can wind up at 4 schools in 4 years, which is what has happened with Trey White at the same point in time, um, like the coaches can move, so the players can move and stuff too. But sometimes you get worried that every player who has been at a bunch of different schools is going to be an AJ Storr situation. And maybe sometimes it's not about that. Like maybe we can look back on Trey White's situation and be like, yeah, he's been at 4 schools in 4 years, but that's different than what AJ Storr is doing with Trey. Oh, he was at Louisville. Their coach got fired, he was at Illinois and they decided they just wanted to bring in a bunch of like European players, right? Clearly, Brad Underwood and Bill Self are friends. Like he wouldn't have ended up at Kansas if there wasn't a good word put in on him, right? But he's just been so consistently awesome for this team. And it's just funny looking back on all the high-profile transfer portal additions that KU has made over the last, 3, 4, 5 years. And that one of the best ones KU has been one of the more low-key ones. Like, people figured Trey White would come in and be a starter for this team. It's not that they were, oh, who is this guy? Like, people knew who he was. But I don't think people had any idea that it could be this good, because this dude is looking like an All-American level player right now for what he's doing for Kansas. Obviously, that would have to come with Kansas continuing to win games like this, but the consistency that he is putting up points and the consistency that he is providing for this team has been pretty incredible. And I think, Melvin Council, to the same extent, has been an under-the-radar transfer addition that has been awesome for KU. I feel like he's gotten his flowers a little bit more, and deservedly so, but because of especially the big game he had against NC State, that kind of caught people on notice. And I don't know, because Trey White's just been so consistent, if he's gotten the same flowers nationally, and he absolutely deserves them. We also got to see in this one that I found was very interesting, the true Bill Self rotation. Now, obviously, at the end of the game, we see a bunch of guys just check in, and we end up with a bunch of guys who end up playing in the game. But there were 7 guys who were playing for KU through the first, 37, 38, 39 minutes of the game. It was the starters, Trey White, Melvin Council, Bryson Tiller, Darryn Peterson, Floyd Badunga, and your 2 bench guys. It was Elmarko Jackson and Jamari McDowell. Now, obviously, part of that had to depend on, right, if Badunga or Tiller get in foul trouble, then maybe you have to throw Paul Mbia in a certain situation. But no Jaden Dawson, no Cole Rosario. And I think this serves 2 ways. One, this serves as a message to both of those guys that, like, hey, the train has departed. Are you going to find another route to meet me at the next stop and then hop on the train? Or are you going to be sitting back here by the time we loop back around, And I do think there will be other games those guys play. It's not like they're never going to play again. But it clearly was an indication for Bill Self in the bigger games, which becomes important because once you get to the end of the regular season, once you get to the Big 12 tournament, once you get to the NCAA tournament, when Bill Self is really going to go with the guys he trusts, that was an indication right there. As of this time right now, if you were in an NCAA tournament game, it'd be a 7-man rotation, and those would be your 7. So we got a little bit of peek into that. Other than that, biggest positives of this one, obviously we beat an undefeated team by 21 points. Like, that is a positive in its own. I mentioned Trey White, how good he was. We got to see Darryn Peterson. Do we count this as Darryn Peterson finishing the game? Technically, he still didn't get to, be out there when the clock hit 0, but I count this as Darryn Peterson finishing the game. So that's good to see there. The 3-point shooting was electric for KU. That was good to see. And they even did it without, it wasn't like, okay, you would think if KU was 12 of 24 from 3, which they were, you would think Darryn Peterson, he must have went like 6 of 8 from 3 or something. He was 2 of 7. The rest of the team was 10 of 17. So that's encouraging that, like, hey, in some other games where some other guys aren't going to be making threes, Trey White's not going to go 5 of 7 every game. Well, Darryn Peterson's going to go better than 2 of 7 in a lot of games. But I thought Bryson Tiller was a big positive in this game because he had been struggling of late. And I think the biggest switch we saw from him, and I think we saw this a little bit from Elmarko too, just super aggressive for both of those guys. And then, you have to talk about the defense, right? Iowa State has had a good offense so far this season, and KU held them to 37% from the field. KU held them to just 63 points. A lot of turnovers for Iowa State, some of them unforced, some of them forced by KU. Those were big differences in this one. And then the other biggest positive I would say in this one, I don't really have any big negatives from this one. Beat an undefeated team by 21. Like, we don't need to nitpick. So the final big positive I kind of have here, the ball movement. It felt like for the first time all season, it wasn't, okay, here's the Darryn Peterson offense, here's the offense without Darryn Peterson. It felt like there was synergy and those two things lined up together for, to me, what felt like the first time all season. And all of those are huge positives, not just for this game, but potentially moving forward if you can repeat some of those. But on its own, the victory is gigantic for this Kansas team. All right, let's get on to our moments and plays of the game, stat of the game, awards, game balls, all that and more. What's next for KU? This is Locked on Jayhawks. This episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The college football playoff is here. It's on to its championship game, and FanDuel has given all customers even more ways to get in on the action during the championship. Because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. You can use the profit boosts on who you think is going to win, the spread, the over-under. You want to build your own parlay with, you think Fernando Mendoza is going to have 200 or more yards. You think Carson Beck is going to throw a passing touchdown. You like some of the receivers like Malachi Toney or maybe one of the running backs. You can build your parlay your ways, and then you apply your profit boost, go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. Obviously, we got the divisional round coming up this weekend, which is, for my money, the best weekend of the NFL all season. So FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long. Visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks again for joining us here on Locked on Jayhawks. Don't forget you can check out the Everydayer Club as well, where you can get the ad-free version of Locked on Jayhawks with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the major podcast apps, and you get an invite to the members-only Locked on Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat for just Locked on Jayhawks fans. You can join the Big 12, you can join the college football, the college portal. World's your oyster on the Discord channel. So check that out, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. All right, our moments of the game for KU taking down Iowa State 84-63. Just kind of an all-around performance for KU. They outshot Iowa State 51% to 37%. 50% from three on 12 of 24. KU had 3 less turnovers. Anyway, first moment of the game, I think, would have to be the Elmarko diving on the loose ball, and then it leads to a Trey White 3 for an Allen Fieldhouse pop to go up 17-9. I think Trey White hit a 3 moments later, too, to make it 20-9. That would be a really good moment in the game. I thought this was a really fun moment when so Iowa State, Killian Toure, falls down and is a little slow to get up, and the ref inadvertently stops it dead. He should have let the play continue on. And I think Trey White was the one who hit the 3 off of it right as they're whistling it dead. And it was just kind of like ball don't lie, oh yeah, well, whatever. We'll make it anyway. Darryn Peterson hits a 3 to make it 27, and that was kind of just a okay, screw you moment, so that was fun. And then it starts getting a little scary there. Peterson goes down with the potential injury. Obviously he came back, so that was good to go. But on top of that, Iowa State starts coming back a little. They've got it down to 11 points. The Flory play where he kind of splits 2 and takes a dribble or 2 and then dunks it, that was huge. And then moments later, Trey White hits a 3 to push it back to 14. And I think that's what kickstarted the 13-0 run for KU that really put this one to bed. The Trey White one was the one that kind of kickstarted the run. The McDowell corner 3 is the one that enhanced the run, right? Trey White started the car. McDowell got it into 4th gear. He hit that corner 3 shortly after to put KU up 17. So I think you could kind of look to any of those. I mean, there were some other good moments and buckets after that for KU. The Melvin Council, and one was kind of the exclamation mark with, at the under 4 timeout. Flory had another kind of drive to the lane. So those are all good to see. But I think if I was picking one specifically, it'd have to be the early moment with the Elmarko dive, which actually, let's skip ahead to awards here. I'm going to give an award on that to, we're all trying to figure out the guy who did this award. The meme, from, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the TV show. Anyway, it's the guy in the hot dog suit, right? Funny TV show, sketch TV show. Anyway, I think you should leave. So Elmarko gets credit for this. It was a great play. He dives on the loose ball. He passes it ahead. Trey White hits a three. But it's just funny because it's like, you're the one who lost the ball. And then, I mean, credit to him. It was a great play, and he made the most out of, make lemonade out of lemons. But it was just funny because it was like, you didn't even have to be in that situation to begin with. But that was just kind of funny there. The other award I want to give away is the aggressive equals better award, which that's going to go to Tiller and Elmarko. Right off the jump in this game, Bryson Tiller was aggressive. He scores 4 early points for KU. He had the early bucket where he's driving to the rim. He had some other aggressive takes in the second half. He had one in the second half where he missed the shot. It was a really powerful take, though. He missed the shot, but the process on it was really good. And then actually at the other end, I'm pretty sure he blocked Josh Jefferson at the other end right on defense. So, like, if Bryson Tiller is playing that way and playing that aggressively, he looks like a future pro. He looks like a future KU star, and he is super impactful. And that's just what you want to see each and every game for KU. But it's the same with Elmarko. Like, the difference for Elmarko, because here's the thing. Elmarko is faster than most of the other people on the floor. He is a good athlete, but sometimes he doesn't play that way. When he is playing aggressive, when he is like he's getting to the free throw line in the first half, he's driving, he's getting paint touches, he's using his speed to his advantage to cause mismatches. That is when he is at his best. And I think you saw a little bit of that in the Iowa State game. Again, can you see that more consistently? We haven't seen either of those things consistently this season, but maybe you're getting there. Can you start to see a little bit more in some way? That'll be an interesting question. Our stat of the game here. So again, you could point to holding Iowa State to 37%. You could point to KU shooting 50% from three, 12 of 24. I think that's a big reason why KU blew out Iowa State is how well they shot from three, but also give KU credit because I thought they moved the ball really well. And a lot of those threes were really good looks for KU. And at the end of the day, even if you shoot 8 of 24, which would have been 33%, nothing to jump out on, you still win by 9. So it's more than just that. But I think that was the difference of you winning by a comfortable margin and winning by over 20 points. The turnovers being +3 for KU, when that's usually a big advantage for Iowa State, is huge. But here's where the bigger area of that comes into play. KU led 17-4 in points off turnovers. 13-point swing is gigantic. We didn't do negatives from this game, but I would say if you were saying one, the offensive rebounds for Iowa State, they had 17 of them. KU had 26 defensive rebounds. That was more of an issue in the first half. I want to say Iowa State had more offensive rebounds in the first half than KU had defensive rebounds. That could be an issue moving forward. We've seen that come up multiple times throughout the season for KU. So you want to get that tightened up. But beyond that, the points in the paint, KU led 32-30. Blocks was 8-4. Steals was 8-7 in favor of KU. Assists was 17-11 for KU. They led 39 minutes and 35 seconds. But yeah, that's the stat to me. It's the points off turnovers. 17-4. Iowa State is really good at getting points off turnovers. He held them only 4. And on top of it, KU, a team that has not been forcing a lot of steals or getting a lot of points off turnovers this year, did just that against one of the better teams in the country. So that's our stat of the game. All right, who wins game balls? What's next for KU? Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. Don't forget to check out all of our commitment episodes on all the transfer portal editions that Lance Leipold and his staff have made so far via the transfer portal for KU. And we'll have more KU football and KU basketball content coming at you throughout the week here on Locked On Jayhawks. So make sure you subscribe to the show anywhere that you get your podcasts. By the way, this was KU's second most efficient offensive game of the season. The only one was more efficient was the Green Bay game. And in terms of defensive efficiency, let's see, this was about middle of the pack for KU. It was similar to the UConn game, actually. It's actually technically on the lower half, but right kind of in the middle. And given Iowa State's offense, still a very impressive number where KU was at. So good stuff there. All right, our game balls for this one. Let's start with the KU offensive game ball. I mean, we can talk this up if we want. Melvin Council had 15 points. Darryn Peterson had 16 points. Floyd Badunga had a couple nice takes. He had 10. Jamari McDowell and Elmarko gave you 8 off the bench each, which in general, you could say the bench scoring because KU doesn't always get that. How about this one? Jamari not only had 8 points, he had 6 assists to 0 turnovers. So I think he might actually have a case in terms of like impact that you don't always get off the bench. But let's not get too crazy here. It's Trey White. Trey White gets the offensive game ball, right? 19 points, 6 of 13, 5 of 7 from 3. He had 6 offensive rebounds. He had more than half of KU's offensive rebounds. KU had 11 offensive rebounds. He had 6 of them. He also had 3 assists to 1 turnover. Trey White was your offensive game ball. He was awesome in this game with the double-double. Our defensive game ball for KU. So if you're just looking at the stat stuff, Trey White had a block. Bryson Tiller had a block. Peterson had a block and 2 steals. Flory had 4 blocks and 2 steals. Jamari McDowell had a block. And then Elmarko Jackson with another game with a bunch of steals. He had 4 steals for KU. So you would have a lot of good options to go with if you're just talking the stats. Now, if we look at Iowa State, Tamin Lipsey was just 4 of 15. That was kind of it's weird because it felt like KU left him too open to drive to the lane too often, but he still just went 4 of 15. It felt like KU was just kind of being like, hey, we're going to leave you open. We're going to sag off you. We're going to sag off Killian Torrey and see who beats you. But here's interesting. So Joshua Jefferson came in one of the best players in the country. He held him to 4 of 14. That was a combination. I noticed Flory on him a lot. I know it was a few other guys at different times, but Flory gets credit for that. And then on Milan Momcilovic, just 3 of 9 for the game. That was a kind of combination. Like, I think at one point, Melvin Council was on him. I think Trey White drew him a lot. I'm going to go Flory for defensive MVP, though, because he had some reps on Jefferson. He had the 4 blocks. He had the 2 steals. He had a big impact on defense. Also had 5 defensive rebounds for KU. So he's going to get that one there. And by the way, speaking of defensive rebounding, Melvin Council had 7 of them. So that's big when you can get your guard involved in that way. And then our overall game ball is going to go to Trey White. Like I said, he did well when he was on Milan Momcilovic for different stretches defensively. And he had the 10 rebounds. And he had the 3 assists to just 1 turnover. And he had the 19 points on 5 made threes. And he had a block. He was a plus 18 through 35 minutes. The only players better, Jamari was a plus 30. Melvin Council was a plus 24. So Trey White, our offensive and overall game ball. Flory gets our defensive game ball for KU. All right, what is next for the Jayhawks? So they're back at it on Saturday, hosting the Baylor Bears. And KU has not won back-to-back Big 12 games. And gosh, it's probably been a while, right? If we think back to last year. So obviously 2-2 through 4 games this year. Let's see. Okay, the last one back-to-back Big 12 games, they won the regular season finale last year and then won in the first round of the Big 12 conference tournament against UCF. The last time they won back-to-back regular season Big 12 games, February 22nd against Oklahoma State and then at Colorado. Let's see, the last time they won back-to-back Big 12 games against top 50 opponents, you would have to go back to at least 2024. You'd have to, 2024, they beat Oklahoma, who was 46th on Ken Palm, Texas, who was 25th. So it's been a while since they've beaten back-to-back top 50 opponents in Big 12 play. They've got a chance to end that against the Baylor Bears. So Baylor just won tonight. They just took down Oklahoma State by 15, which has been actually a pretty decent Oklahoma State team so far this season. But that's after they started 0-3 in Big 12 play. Now, they did that on the road, so they're going to be coming in hot. Obviously, they made that, very raucous decision to bring on James Najee. He only played 6 minutes in their most recent game. So this will be an interesting Baylor game in terms of it's kind of like how Baylor's been in the last, 3, 4, 5 years. It feels like ever since their title team, it's been like heavily weighted to offense with defenses that have struggled. And that's another one of how this team kind of is, which is interesting because the 2 teams KU just struggled with over the last week, UCF and TCU were higher ranked defenses with lower ranked offenses, but KU struggled defensively. So maybe they'll be more locked in knowing they're facing higher offense or something, but can you now start to build momentum? Can you build off of this game and know what you're capable of and start a run, start a winning streak here with the upcoming game against the Baylor Bears and Scott Drew. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page, where you can like and subscribe to the show. Check out all our other videos. Check out Locked On College Football, Locked On College Basketball, and we'll see you next time for another edition of LOJ.